Welcome to Relatively Weird, the podcast where a couple of cousins get together and talk about everything weird. I'm Kim.
I'm Jilly.
And let's get into it. So, I have an unsolved mystery for you today.
Good.
And it's kind of similar to what we talked about. I don't know what order these are going to come out in. So maybe last time, maybe not. Who knows? But similar to what you had talked about
Previously.
Some guys.
Okay.
And some stuff happens to them. So these are the stories of Tom Young and Keith Reinhard. Do either of those names sound familiar?
No.
Okay. Great. So I can just make it up as I go.
Yeah.
Just kidding. All right. Firstly, this takes place in Silver Plume, Colorado, which is located in Clear Creek County in the Clear Creek Valley. It is part of like the Front Range of the Rockies. I guess I didn't know that the Rockies had multiple ranges.
I didn't know
I
either.
thought it was a range. But yeah, so it is obviously in a valley in the Rockies. It was originally a silver mining town. And then, that didn't pan out.
Pan out.
Yeah, I did give that to you, didn't I? And just to give you an idea of how little it is, as of 2021, the population of Silver Plume is 204 people.
Oh.
Yeah, teeny tiny. So we're going to start with Tom Young. When this story starts, he's in his 40s. I want to say like mid to late. He had been...
Wait, what year are we in?
I'll get there. It was 1980. The story's in 1987.
Okay.
He had been a high school art teacher, and he also served in the Special Forces. And in 1986, he opened a bookstore. I think it was like a travel-based bookstore in Silver Plume on Main Street.
Okay.
He lived alone with just Gus, his beloved black lab, which to me sounds ideal.
Yes. Agreed.
Like the beginning of a Hallmark movie. You're a little tiny mountain town with your bookstore and your dog. Like, yes, please.
What more could you want?
So, people in town kind of felt like he was happiest when it was just him and Gus. He was a bit of a loner. They called him eccentric.
Why?
One place so there was one, I saw somewhere there, he would play catch with Gus, but instead of a ball, he would use a doll's head.
Oh. Okay.
And if I'm being honest, if you are trying to keep people away from you and remain a loner.
I thought you were going to say something worse, honestly.
Yeah, I mean, it's not bad.
It was a real person bone.
I mean, to be fair, Abel has put holes into several Cabbage Patch doll heads.
Where does he find these Cabbage Patch dolls? Sidebar.
Yeah. So my dad moved out of
Yeah.
the house and sold it. So I had to go back and get all my childhood stuff that I left there because I'm a millennial who's too sentimental to let things go. So I brought them home thinking I will give them to somebody because they were perfectly
Your
fine.
dog?
And Abel destroyed them. So he would have delighted in the game of catch with the doll's head.
You would have kept people away successfully if you had displayed that.
I think there's one left. Maybe I'll just cut the head off and take him out front. So people in the neighborhood can talk about me. Anyway, so he's doing his bookstore stuff, but on the day of September 7th, 1987, he closed up his shop for the day, and he and Gus kind of wandered off towards the mountains and were never seen alive again.
Oh.
So first, there wasn't a a lot of concern because he had actually told several people that he was planning a trip to Europe.
I was going to say, he just wandered off of the mountains?
So the way this is described, because this is not the first, no, it probably wasn't the first, but it's not the last time something like this happens. So it sounds to me like, especially such a small town, that perhaps there might be a lot of trailheads available to them in a particular direction, because later on someone else is described as walking off towards a particular mountain. So I think the trailheads to some of the peaks are nearby.
Okay.
So I don't think it's super weird. It also seems like a small enough town that you're kind of walking most places. It was like a camp. It was literally when it first started.
Did he do that often? Was he like...
I
mean, I don't know. Did he have like friends, or is he?
So it doesn't really sound like it. Not locally. You do find out that he did have some family, but not close to him. Like, I think they lived elsewhere. He was just kind of there on his own. But I also think he's the town eccentric. They probably were like, I don't know, Tom's just probably going to play catch by the creek somewhere. I don't know.
With a doll head. Okay.
Did you see him with a doll head? So they're like, okay, whatever. I don't know. He mentioned something about taking a trip, right? So maybe, and you think like that's the last time he's seen. They probably assume he came back. He probably just took like an afternoon walk, and then went back home.
But wouldn't you be okay? You're like the owner of a little bookstore. Mm-hmm. Wouldn't you be like, we're going for a hike?
You would think that you would put a sign up. Yes, right. You would think that.
Okay.
But again, Tom was a weirdo, I guess.
All right.
They're thinking no big deal, but after he doesn't come back for a few weeks, the police get involved.
Is Gus the only animal he has?
Yes.
Okay. So, like, no cats at home, nothing. All right.
The police discover, after reaching out to his extended
family.
That must be... I can't wait to listen to that back. It's probably so annoying. Anyway, they reach out to his extended family that he did have. That the Europe trip was news to them. It's not like he had told anybody in the family that he was doing that. So they were like,
he have?
Perhaps.
Yeah, I mean, like, that's kind of a big... All right.
Right. Like, I don't know. I guess it depends on how close you are with people.
Yeah, but if you just...
There are people in our family I wouldn't tell I was going to Europe.
True. Yeah.
Like, a lot.
Yeah. Most of them.
Any hoozle. So, also, though, and more leaning towards something actually happened, is that normally he would have boarded Gus.
Oh, yeah.
For a trip like that. But
yeah, that's true.
Yeah, you can't.
Like, you can't, I mean, that'd be a pain in the ass.
I mean, especially not in the 80s. I don't think people were doing that so much. Taking their dogs to Europe with them.
Joe would.
We'd have to. He wouldn't survive without us. When they went to check his usual spot, Gus wasn't there, the place that he normally was boarded. And they were like, no, he's not here. We didn't get any phone calls about it. So they also couldn't find any evidence of Tom having ever purchased a plane ticket, which...
How do you find evidence of that in the 80s?
So...
Would you just call every airline and be like...
I mean, I assume you could purchase a plane ticket with cash in the 80s. Could you?
Probably. How do you... Okay, just listen.
I'm going
to say something right now that's going to be embarrassing. How? Okay, I was an adult when the internet was already... I grew up with the internet.
Yeah.
I have not purchased a plane ticket in any other way other than the internet. So people who are listening to this who have been adults in the pre-internet era.
You're saying this very gently.
Do we, like, how do you purchase, like, How would they?
Yeah, but wouldn't his name, I guess, you would go probably
Oh,
to
like
a local airport and say like,
okay.
do you have any
I'm
reservations?
over I ask you questions
are.
that are... Oh, go ahead.
It's all right.
Okay.
I mean, you got me thinking.
Anyway,
then we got there. Anyway.
I believe you. Yes, they couldn't find him.
They did. I'm not there to ask them. So they, after an initial search, good Lord, words. After an initial search of the area, nothing happens in Tom's case for almost a year. He's just gonzo.
Okay.
So now we jump to 1988. So remember that happened September 7th of 1987. So now we're in 1988, and I'm going to introduce you to Keith Reinhard. We know a lot more information about Keith, as you'll see. But Keith is not around, he's 49 years old. I put around. Keith is 49 years old at this time, and he lived in Chicago with his wife and kids. And he had spent the last couple of decades as a sports writer. It felt so weird.
Sports writer?
He was a sports writer.
Why is that weird?
I don't know. It came out funny.
All right.
So Keith was about to turn 50 in September of 1988. And as one does, he was feeling pretty anxious about it. Kind of felt like he was running out of time to do all the things that he wanted.
At 50?
Yeah.
Okay.
As someone who's kind of sort of on the verge of 40.
Okay, yeah. I was going to say, you're not near 50.
No. So Keith had a childhood friend named Ted who happened to own a little cafe in the town of Silver Plume, Colorado.
Okay.
Ted would talk to Keith about his life in the little mountain town, and Keith thought that this would be kind of the perfect place to check off some of those bucket list items. He had dreams of writing a novel, but on top of that, he wanted to work on his fitness and maybe get rid of that terrible fear of heights that apparently he was dealing with.
50? I think you're just...
Okay.
Well, I mean, after
You were
a while.
just saying.
No, but like, there's a difference between, like, you're going to get over your phobia versus, like, you're going to die. You can't learn...
Yeah, but how about you feel like your phobia is holding you back from doing some of those things?
True. Okay.
Okay.
Yeah, all right. The fear of missing out is worse than falling to your death. Okay.
Can't relate.
Not for you, right?
Not yet. Maybe when I'm 49. So he likes that idea and chats with his wife. She's on board. So in the month of June of 1988, Keith heads to Silver Plume. His plan was to take 3 months and kind of see how it went. By himself. Okay. He left his wife and kids in Chicago. But if everything worked out, they might plan to join him.
Okay.
He even rented a little commercial space right on Main Street to open up an antique shop.
Did it have books in it?
He figured... Please hold. He figured they were just entering the summer months, which meant tourists, so a shop like that might do well. Now, let's pause here for a second. You, I would think, must be fairly confident that you're staying to open a store.
Yeah.
For 3 months?
I mean, is he, like, wealthy enough to be
That's what I'm, like, nobody ever really talked about that, and I guess ultimately it's not really part of the story, but, like, why would you... That takes capital.
Yeah.
And risk.
Risk, right.
So
sorry, did you say what he did before he moved?
Sports writer.
Oh, right. So he could basically do that from anywhere, though, as long as he could...
I guess.
Mail it in.
Jesus. I'm so obnoxious about this. We don't know what people did in the 80s. But so, no, I don't think his plan was to continue being a sports writer. If they stayed there, I don't think that that's what he wanted to do.
Okay.
As you mentioned, the location of his new antique shop happens to be the same spot where Tom Young's bookstore was.
Okay.
And when Keith heard about Tom's disappearance, which only happened 9 months earlier, in a town of less than 200 people, right? So, like, this is weird. You end up in a space. you're interested.
How did I'm probably focusing on the wrong things again, but like, okay, if a guy just goes missing, are you like, well, like whoever, I mean, I suppose he's not paying rent in that space, so it's not really his space anymore.
No.
Okay.
And chances are, like, I think that in that sort of environment, I would feel like there would be a strong possibility you're a tenant at will. Like, there's probably no contract. There's probably
no. Probably
I kind of have a feeling that the building owner was probably not. I don't know. It probably wasn't a big deal for them to kind of move stuff out.
I think I'm focusing on the small things again. All right, go on.
It's fine. You can have questions. Okay. So Keith's fascinated, and he feels inspired to base his novel around Tom.
He's writing a novel.
Yes, remember I said that.
Oh, you did say that.
I said
Sorry,
it.
I was focusing on the sports writer part.
It's okay. It's all right.
Sorry,
That's one of his
hold on.
bucket list
Pause.
things. All right. So Keith is thinking, this is a great topic. I'm going to use Tom's story to write a novel. So Keith went around town trying to learn more about Tom's story from the locals, and he'd even kind of talk about it quite a bit when he talked to his family back in Chicago on the phone. Like, they felt like he was really, really focusing on the story.
Well, yeah.
So July 31st, 1988, Keith is going about his business. He's doing his novel writing, his antique store owning little thing. And in the meantime, two people hunting on Republican Mountain, only like a mile and a half outside of Silver Plume, found some skeletal remains.
Were they canine?
The remains turned out to be Tom and Gus.
No. Sorry, say that again.
Yep.
How far was it away?
Only a mile and a half.
Oh my God.
I know.
Okay.
And, okay, so I will say that in my research, there was not a lot of information on the actual search process for Tom. So I don't know how involved it was. I don't know if they kind of said, like, there's not a lot for us to go on for Tom. Like, there's no sign of foul play anywhere. He wasn't acting weird.
There wasn't, like, enough intrigue other than the doll head thing. But there wasn't... Sorry, that just really tickled me. There wasn't really, like... Was there ever, like, a missing person, like, he's gone and now we have to look?
There were articles. I did find a couple of articles about Tom.
So they're... okay. All right.
But they weren't... You know what, though? But I think we find that now, too. Like, depending on who that person has in their life, I think sometimes the push can be harder.
But wouldn't that be weird? Like, I don't know, you're renting a space for your shop.
Yes.
And you still have your... I mean, we don't know if he, like, owned his house outright. Probably. It was the 80s. They probably did. But, like...
Sons of bitches.
But, like, you know, but that's weird. Like, you could expect... Okay, if somebody's gone for, like, a month, you'd be like, all right, you know, maybe he just had, like, an extended stay or whatever. But if it's something... You're gone for 9 months. You don't even... Like, he doesn't even have, like, a relatively close neighbor that they could be like, that's weird, all your stuff's still there.
Would you... I guess you talk to your neighbor. Somebody talked to my neighbors, they'd be like, I have literally no idea.
But wouldn't you feel like it's weird? You know some of your neighbors. Like, if you're like, so-and-so got a new car. So, I don't know.
I guess.
Listen, my house has neighbors all around it, so I can see from every window. So
we've found Tom and Gus. Skeletal remains at this point. Both have the same cause of death, which was gunshot wounds to the head.
Ooh.
Unexpected.
I was thinking you were going to say, like, hypothermia or something.
Right, the elements. The gun was actually found with them, and they discovered that Tom had actually bought it only 4 days before he and Gus went missing.
He bought it.
Yes.
Okay.
So the police felt like it was pretty obvious that it was a case of suicide, and they closed the case pretty quickly. Now, you want to be like, why would you have taken the dog with you?
Yeah.
But I kind of see it as like, this guy was a loner, and all he had was his dog, and he felt like maybe what would happen to him. I mean, we were just talking about this. What would happen to him? Who would take him? Would he end up in the right hands?
So a
blah,
bullet
blah, blah.
is better?
Listen, I'm not defending
Okay.
him. I'm just sort of saying... So I'm just saying that that's a possibility.
Okay.
Because it is
a
something that
possibility.
people said was he would never do that to Gus. But I think you could...
You're not in technically your healthiest mind.
Yes,
Okay.
yes,
Yep.
yeah. So that's kind of... Everybody's sort of like, oh, okay, well, that's what happened to Tom, and it's devastating, but at least we know where he is, and that case is closed. So just a week later, on August 7th of 1988, Keith closed up his antique store for the day, kind of like mid-afternoon, and as he walked through the town, he mentioned to a couple people that he was planning to summit Pendleton Mountain that day. He even actually went into Ted's Cafe and mentioned the same thing to him. And at around 4:30 p.m., people saw him heading in the direction of the mountain. No. So kind of, again, that, like, I think there must be trailheads in a certain area.
Okay.
So I'm going to side step here just for a second to give you some stats about Pendleton Mountain to, like, give you some context about what this would mean.
So, hold on. So, where... Remind me again where Ted and his dog were?
They were found on Republican Mountain.
Okay. All right.
So the summit of Pendleton is at an elevation of 12,275 feet above sea level. That's obviously not what you hike because you're not starting from sea level when you hike in the Rockies.
Right.
I saw one trail that was 1,800 feet of elevation, which is possible, but I also think there are other trails that are further. I don't know which one he took. But anyway, it's still a 6-hour round trip hike if you're an experienced hiker, which Keith wasn't.
Okay. 6 hours. Whew.
And for our reference, I'm using this because it's somewhat local to us, and I think a lot of people know about it, but Mount Washington Summit is 6,288 feet above sea level.
Oh.
So... about 6,000 feet lower.
Right. But you said that you're not starting from sea level, so that's a bit different. Okay, yeah.
But even in the month of August, the average temperature on Mount Washington is 48.7 degrees. The point being...
August? Really?
Yes.
Wow.
Yes.
Okay.
And that was kind of... Obviously, we have the luxury of the observatory on the top of Mount Washington that records all of that stuff. Mm-hmm. And I kind of wanted to get an idea of like, okay, so we went hiking in August... One temperature at the trailhead is irrelevant by the time you get to the summit.
Yeah.
Especially, I mean, I've obviously never hiked the Rockies, but that's a whole different ballgame out there. So those hikes require a lot of equipment and layers of clothes. So you can take stuff off, put stuff on, all of that stuff. So needless to say, it's not a hike that an inexperienced hiker who's afraid of heights would take on by themselves.
Yeah.
Especially at 4:30 in the afternoon.
No, if it's a 6 hour, okay, yeah.
If it's 6 hour and you're moving, like you're not experienced. It would take me, I wouldn't survive, but it would but let's pretend I would.
Okay.
I'd probably be twice as long. It'd be all day for me. So,
well, right, and that's not even, like you'd be like, okay, I'm at the top. Okay, bye. Like,
right. Oh, right. Exactly. Right. Then you're just like, oh, that was great. I'm just leaving now. So he had no equipment or supplies, and he was wearing his everyday clothing, like a flannel shirt and regular shoes. Like, this is not. So honestly, everybody he told that to thought he was joking. They didn't think he was actually going to go hiking. They were like, okay, great story, Keith. We'll see you tomorrow.
Listen, no matter if you're like, just don't go by yourself. I don't think hiking at all by yourself is not a good idea. What if something happens?
It's hard. I mean, I think it depends on where you go.
Well, now we have devices that you can be like,
true.
Hello?
This is true. This is
Come
very
get
true.
me.
And that's like, I think, I would imagine at the time, satellite phones were still a thing.
No, yeah, that's true.
Then that kind of a hike in the Rocky Mountains, I would think you would want, especially by yourself, a satellite phone.
Yeah.
To be able to...
Just don't.
Listen,
just don't.
Don't do it.
Like, there's got to be mountain lions. There's got to be, like...
Yes. There
bears,
definitely,
probably?
Definitely.
I would imagine.
So... Bears?
Well, because they're not quite... they are west. So, grizzlies. I don't know.
Quite.
Are grizzlies in Colorado?
In the Rockies? I don't know. I would think it would be
too high.
Maybe black bears. Well, just because it's easier to... I'm not a freaking bear expert.
All right, go ahead.
Anyway. So, like I said, everybody thought he was kidding. They didn't... Cool. We'll see you tomorrow, pal. However, when morning came and Keith was not back in town, a search was started pretty immediately. The search consisted of 125 people on foot with like 12 search and rescue dogs and several aircraft, which like helicopters and small planes, like 2-person planes. The search was carried out by the Colorado Alpine Rescue Team, who up until Keith had found every person they were ever tasked with finding.
Oh.
Now, alive or not was not specified.
Okay.
But the situation was resolved.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, they had very little to go on. So, like, usually they could be on the lookout for backpacks or other hiking paraphernalia.
Well, he didn't know.
He walked off with nothing.
Well,
the search for Keith ended on August 12th. One of the planes involved in the search actually crashed into Pendleton the day before, killing one of the 2 people on board. The only thing that has ever been found was in September of 2021 when a couple of hikers found Keith's wallet on Pendleton Mountain.
How far up? Do you know?
It did not say.
Okay.
And that's actually, you're like on a trail in the woods. How would it, 125 people? But the search, a lot of places said the terrain was horrible to deal with. It's it's rough terrain to hike. But not only that, you're probably going off trail. You're not just saying a guy is missing. So you're not staying on trail. So you're like probably bushwhacking some of it. It must have been really exhausting and difficult. But where were those hikers that they found a wallet that couldn't have been found since 1988?
Yeah.
What y'all doing in the woods? Anyway, so some people think that Keith legitimately tried to hike Pendleton that night, and he met his end there, either by like falling or something similar.
Can you imagine?
You're
afraid of
heights. I imagine?
No, like that's the one thing you were like, I'm gonna get over this. No, you're not.
And in that situation, any potential coincidences between his story and Tom's are just that, coincidences. Some people think he actually left with the intention of disappearing.
I don't buy it.
Right. The antique store was doing poorly, which, hello, you've had it open for 2 months.
Yeah.
He was in the middle of a midlife crisis, but he's also very close with his kids and his wife. But somebody also suggested, kind of in a similar vein, with that he left with the intention of disappearing. People have suggested that maybe he left with the intent of coming back as research for his book. So he would get like firsthand look at what happens when someone goes missing there.
Well, why wouldn't you just do the same mountain?
I mean, I didn't dig into the stats of Republican Mountain, but maybe he felt like Pendleton was more manageable.
I guess.
I mean, it seems to me that there's not really a small mountain in that
No,
area.
I suppose not.
So I think
the Rockies. Okay, yeah.
They're all
True.
Terrible. Great if you're into that.
Equally terrible.
Sounds like a nightmare to me. Anyway, but maybe he, in that process, ended up having an accident and didn't come back.
Okay.
However, the theory that Keith's family believes the most is that someone intentionally hurt both Keith and Tom. They believe that in renting the same space, the two happened upon some information that they weren't supposed to, Or Tom found out the info, Keith found out what happened to Tom, and now Keith is a liability. But something that points in that direction is that apparently the police were not able to conclusively determine that the bullets that killed Tom and Gus definitely belonged to Tom's gun.
Okay. So they found the bullets, obviously. And the gun, right?
Yes.
Try to put the bullet in the gun, see if it fits. No,
Is that how it works?
Yeah, so, okay.
Once it's fired?
Well, you would know what type of bullet it is. I was
my
listening to Invisible Choir, and they were talking about you might have remembered this. They were talking about a father who they originally thought that he committed suicide, that his gun, he shot himself while he was driving. He had his kid in the back. Later, when someone digged into it, they found that the bullet that hit him in the head was not a bullet that could be inserted into his gun. So they either thought the gun went off accidentally or that he shot himself, but they were like, it couldn't have been. Because you can't fit. There's different types of bullets for different types of guns.
Okay, so yes. So I think that at the very least, they knew that the bullets could go to that gun.
Okay. All right.
But in doing ballistics testing, I don't think, because a lot of times what happens to the bullet, as I'm sure you've seen on crime shows, is that it gets like a pattern on it from the inside of the gun as it gets shot out.
Yeah.
And it's often like a fingerprint. And so from the sounds of it, I think that they couldn't conclusively. And what does that mean? I don't really know. Whether that's like maybe the gun was too altered from being out in the elements, or the bullets were, or whatever, because it's 9 months on a mountain in the middle of the Rockies.
Yeah, it could have been like
through winter.
Okay.
Because you have to figure September.
Right, and
to
probably
July.
a pretty bad winter.
Right. So I don't know if they were just so something was deteriorated to the point that they couldn't conclusively do it.
All right.
I think it's enough to put doubt in people's minds that Tom actually killed himself.
Okay. Well, even if it did match his gun.
Oh, right. Somebody could have gotten a hold of it.
Yeah.
Yeah, for sure. Some people actually believe that Tom and or Keith discovered evidence of nuclear waste being dumped illegally in the area.
Oh.
And that they had to be silenced.
Was there nuclear waste in the area?
Nobody's saying that.
We don't know.
Allegedly. No. A local man said, I've been seeing a lot of trucks from this plant going up near because you have to remember this was an old mining camp.
All right.
They did a lot of mining in the area, both, I think, for silver and gold. So there are old mine shafts kind of everywhere. And so people were saying that they were getting dumped. It was getting dumped in the shafts. There is a documentary about Keith's story, and they took a Geiger counter to one of the shafts, and it was high. Came back high. But they're like, is it high because there's nuclear waste in there, or because you're digging down into the earth?
That's what I was going to say. Is it like because there really is stuff down there?
So there's I don't think anybody's, number one, if you're asking the local authorities to get involved in that sort of thing, I would think to be able to successfully illegally dump nuclear waste, you probably have gotten the authorities involved yourself anyway.
Yeah.
So chances are they're not going to investigate that.
Right.
But also, it kind of sounds like small town
gossip.
Yeah.
Okay.
Because they don't really go any further than that with that. And the last thing that kind of even has less behind it, but people do mention it, is the potential of a serial killer in the area. As there were several different sets of remains that had been found, none of which were Keith, but there is no other solid evidence for it. The other thing is, you're talking about hiking the Rocky Mountains.
Well, okay.
There's a strong possibility
It's a
people are
hiking
going out
accident.
there. And, right. And
But bullet hole, were there bullet holes?
they did not say that. They just said remains.
Yeah, I mean, but
I think
anything.
specifically skulls.
Okay.
But, as we said, a lot of predators. Maybe
yeah.
they're leaving the skull behind. I don't know.
I don't like that brain food.
There's not a lot on it.
That's true. Yeah, I didn't think of that. Yeah.
So, I don't know. So they don't really, I think, again, that's a theory that's like exciting, for lack of a better way to say that.
Yeah, but if you really didn't find
interesting.
remains, like, I mean, that's interesting.
Right. What happened? What about
Who are those?
people?
Yeah, who
I
are those
don't know.
people?
The sheriff's like, we found some skulls. It's fine.
We're not gonna worry about those. Nothing to see here.
I mean, what did I say? We found some doll heads.
We found a doll's head.
What do you think? What's your most likely theory?
They didn't know each other at all, right?
No, they'd never met before. The only connection is that Keith just got really interested and rented the same space.
Sometimes, though, the easiest, what is it? The easiest answer is usually the answer, which is like,
Yeah.
yeah, maybe that guy did commit suicide with his dog, and then I don't know. Like, I think it's really easy to, especially if you don't know how to hike. Like,
Right.
it's not unheard of to be like, well, he succumbed to, I don't know, he could have broken his leg and then.
Right. You're not wearing the right shoes. I mean, shoes,
Yeah.
period, when you're hiking, are a game changer. And
I mean, as like intriguing as it is that they both have the shop in common.
Yeah.
I mean, maybe, I don't know. It's like, it's a small town. What else are you gonna do except for hike?
well, but I also
suppose?
think that's crazy too, though. In a town of less than 200 people, you have two guys
But why would that?
wander off into the mountains.
But he told people. Keith told people.
I know.
You know, like,
I know.
sometimes I don't know. Like, maybe people just want to make more about it than it's just a series of bad luck, and they happen to both share the same shop.
And I think that, I don't know. I know that Keith's family is, like I said, they're more of the mindset that someone hurt them both. But I think that you want an answer. You don't want to think to yourself, he made a mistake. Maybe you don't want to,
I feel
blame
like,
him.
no, not that anyone's blaming anybody, but maybe, like, you find, like, he was intrigued by this story. No one, I mean, I wish you would have asked people that hike how you should do it before you just go out by yourself. But I don't know, like, I don't think I would want to think somebody hurt my family member, other than, I mean, I don't know. I suppose you want someone else to blame. You don't want to necessarily.
Right. And I also think there's no good way to, like, because at first I was like, oh, maybe if you thought someone hurt him, you could kind of tell yourself it was quick, or
Maybe.
with the idea that, like, if he hurt himself out in the elements, he's lingering.
Oh,
and,
true.
but still, you don't know that for sure. You have no idea. None of it is a good way to go. So
He didn't make, like, any buddies, even acquaintances. He could have been like, hey, do you want to come hike with me?
he did, though. Like, he was pals with Ted.
Well, Ted, why didn't he?
Ted thought it was a joke.
Ted.
Listen, Ted might feel very bad.
I know. I just, not that I'm blaming Ted, like, but just, like, I don't know. I feel like when you're a woman, which obviously these people were not, but you never go anywhere like that alone.
I don't know what I think. There's no one theory that feels more like, well, I can tell you that there are theories that feel less likely to me, but
well, like cryptid type theories. Yeah, I'm sure that there's that lingering around.
Thankfully, I didn't come across any of that. But I think I just can't imagine what you would have found in this little rental space in this tiny little town that would make someone kill you.
No.
That especially because don't you think the town would know? People in the town would be like, oh, Keith's having some trouble with so-and-so. Like, these things don't just come out of nowhere. Like, maybe he would have gotten threats ahead of time, or I don't know.
Yeah, but I feel like he was telling people he was going somewhere. So if he had gotten threats, wouldn't he be like, I'm not going to go anywhere alone. I will be home. Or was he like, I'm telling you I'm going to these mountains.
So,
wink, wink.
Ted did say that when Keith was telling him he was going, he said, if I'm not back tonight, call search and rescue.
But that kind of seems
but
like...
that's fair.
Yeah. Right.
You would hope that wouldn't need to be said.
But wait, he left at, what did you say, in the afternoon?
4:30.
That's crazy.
I know. Right. You think you're going to get back by 6:30?
No.
Because you're not a hiker.
No. And if you want to meet...
You don't have a headlamp.
Right.
Like, you have nothing.
Yeah.
I don't know. This is weird. It's weird.
I just feel skeptical. Like, I feel like one guy had mental problems and the other guy had a lapse in judgment. I don't know. Yeah. So there's been nothing that no other incidences, no one...
No. But Unsolved Mysteries did a story on Keith on a show in 1990, which was only 2 years after he died. And almost 300 tips came in, but nothing ever panned out. But I think that's... People are going to be like, oh, I saw Keith.
So do you think that, like...
in England.
Yeah, right. At this point, what are they going to do? I mean, unless they find his actual remains, which none of those remains were his.
Right.
So, but...
He has since been declared dead, by the way.
But they haven't found a body.
No.
I just wanted to know, like, did the hiker... guys, like, where'd you find the wallet? Was it on the trail? Was it not on the trail? Where exactly, so that we can, like, dig?
And I think... I mean, I would hope. They didn't go too much into it.
Because his clothes... I mean, I don't know. How long do clothes, last in the elements? I mean, probably... No, I mean, it's been...
I mean, I guess... Well... So there are pictures of Tom's remains.
Yeah, but he was found, what, a year in?
9 months, yep.
Yeah.
I'm trying to.
Though.
I didn't look well into them. I looked from afar because I don't like things like that. But I kind of don't think there was much in the way of material, even 9 months in.
I'm just really... I'm just, like, bothered by the wallet part.
I have to be honest with you. I'm a little bothered by Tom and Gus. It said it looked like Tom had just, like, sat against the tree, had the dog with him, and did it. There are a lot of predators up there. Why were they still there? Like, why? It's just so strange to me that the remains weren't kind of scattered.
Oh, yeah.
After being scavenged. You're talking about September in the Rockies. Animals are getting ready for winter at this point. I don't know. It just seems really weird to me.
Are you saying that maybe somebody, like, placed them there afterwards?
Maybe.
And there's so many, like, it is a hiking trail. You couldn't be like, there's a shoe print, because, there's many shoe prints.
Oh, right, exactly.
And then I suppose, when you are a hiker, you probably do find, like, if you saw canine remains, you wouldn't necessarily, one, know that they're canine, but two, like, you'd go, yeah, things die in the woods.
Yes.
So, of course, a human, like, skull looks very distinctive, but...
And I also, so I don't know how much weight I can give this, but so I have the All Trails app on my phone, and you put in different locations to try to see what's local trails. And so I put in Pendleton, and there were none.
Oh.
But if you go, you can go on the internet and they have information about the hikes. But it does not seem like it's busy. And I don't know.
Is it, you said it's still a small town. Like, what did you say, 2021?
2021, there were 204 people.
So that's pretty consistent, like, this whole time it's been a small town.
Yes. So I don't, it's definitely weird. It's sad because Keith was just going out for like we talked about at the beginning, like you're talking about this little tiny town in this probably stunning location.
Yeah.
Guy owns a bookstore or an antique store. Like, it's like the beginning of like every it's a movie. It's ideal.
It's just a different kind of movie now.
You know, it's just a bummer. Whatever happened. And I legitimately think, which is probably never, when it's somebody's lost in an area like that, I just don't know what the likelihood is that you're ever going to find an answer.
Yeah, but just tell me where the wallet was. Tell me. Like, don't pick it up. We'll pick it up, but then put it back.
That was like an aside in one source.
Oh,
yeah.
That's a huge thing,
You
though.
would think so, right. But it was very difficult to, not a lot of places.
That's insane.
I know.
That's a really big, but it'd be like, where, if I were the wife, or I guess the kid, obviously the kid's older than me now, but wouldn't you be like, who found it? Where? Like you said, was it on the trail? Was it not on the trail? Like, okay, so if it was like windy, I guess a wallet could get picked up and like whatever, but
True.
like,
Depending on where.
It's not, but it's not going to be that far that it would travel. And no animal is going to be, unless you had like mints in it or something, like no one.
And so that's the frustrating thing too, though, is they really focused on Pendleton Mountain because that's what he told everybody. But we don't know that that's actually where he went.
Yeah.
Or maybe, or even he could have thought that's where he was going and he didn't.
Right.
You know what I mean? It's just it's so crazy.
I just feel bad for the families.
I know.
Do you know if they like got together with Tom's family and all?
I don't think they ever did that, but I would like to end, or not, we can keep talking, but Keith's own words have been included on a plaque that his family actually placed in the Rockies in his memory. And it says, quote, "Oh God, I want to wander till I die. With the mountains as my living room, my only roof is the sky."
I have mixed feelings about that.
I know.
That's a little sad.
I know. It's beautiful.
Yeah.
But, yeah.
Very on the nose, though.
Yeah. Which, right. So you're like, I don't know.
That's awful.
I don't know. But, so unfortunately,
another
no
unsolved mystery.
From you or for you.
Sorry.
You didn't solve this mystery
I wasn't around at the time.
I can't believe it. I brought you this information to work with.
Dang.
I don't know. Hopefully, maybe we're just not hearing. Because the other thing is, if the wallet did trigger something and there's active stuff going on, they can't tell us. So yeah, that's that on that.
Interesting. What's our sign off?
Our sign off is lengthy.
Okay, go ahead.
Okay. So thanks for listening to Relatively Weird. If you like what you hear, make sure to leave us a review and follow us on your podcast player of choice. You can also find us at Relatively Weird, the pod on Instagram. And if you have any stories that you'd like us to talk about, send us an email at relatively.weirdthepod@gmail.com. Thanks again and see you next time.
Bye.